So probably about 5 years ago, I wrote a play. It was called Chosen, and it was the voice of Mary from Easter Saturday going, what just happened? From her grief and her pain and her loss, she spoke. And it reminds me of these times. They didn't know what was going to happen next. They didn't know that Easter Sunday was coming. They were on Easter Saturday, the day between. I wrote the play and I didn't have anything about Palm Sunday in it. And then I was asked I performed on the day before Palm Sunday, whatever day that is, a Saturday, and then was asked to take part in a church service on the next day. So I quickly wrote something and performed this. And I don't want to put pictures to this because hopefully it will bring its own pictures to you. So here's Mary talking from Easter Saturday, the day after Good Friday, about the Sunday before, when Jesus finally comes into Jerusalem as a king. I've waited the whole of my life for something to happen. And when it did, it was nothing like I expected it. Well, my son, from his birth, has rarely done anything in the usual way. Oh, not that he'd been naughty or anything like that. No, actually, quite the opposite. But that in itself was, well, unexpected. But last Sunday, oh my, it just blew my expectations out the water. Still can't believe it. You see, I was told my son was going to rule. I was told he was going to be the Messiah. He was going to have a kingdom. I should have realised. It wasn't going to start in the usual way. But I didn't. I didn't expect this. I'd never seen them, but I'd been told about the usual processions, into Jerusalem. Lots of pomp and circumstance. The governor and his army trooping through the crowd. Always at a chosen time, so everyone was there, prepared to wave palm branches. Well, it was all about showing his power and strength for everybody to see. But what people felt in their hearts, well, that wasn't seen. It wasn't the ruler that they wanted. So it was all for show, really. People had to be seen to be there. But then, of course, the atmosphere sweeps everybody up. The biggest spectacle that everybody'd seen. But of course, my son, well, he did it so differently. It was, of course, the start of the Passover feast. So, like everybody else, we came to Jerusalem. It was all the usual followers, lots of people. But he told me to come and join them. He got the word out. And of course, we were all walking together into Jerusalem. And then, Jesus stops and he pulls over a couple of them and starts telling them to borrow a colt. It wasn't even a donkey. Well, that must have been from his father. Because, you know what? He knew where they would find one. And then we met them on the far side of the Mount of Olives. And that's where the colt and the donkey were. But there was no coverings for Jesus to sit on. So everyone started to take off their coats so that it was a bit more comfortable. Colts are quite small. I presume that's how it started. Because as Jesus got on the colt, people kept taking off their coats and lying them in front of him. And then I saw people grabbing palm branches and they started waving them, and wow, my heart skipped a beat. Because that's how we used to welcome kings, before the governor, of course. But when the governor arrives, it's planned. But this was real. This was spontaneous. It was like, a wave. It passed through all the people. The head of Jesus was just filled with coats and people waving palm branches. And then they started singing the psalms that we know from the synagogues. It was beautiful. And of course, the slope of the Mount of Olives meant that you could see this wave just carrying on down the slope. More and more people gathered, and it just grew louder. The further we went, and Jesus got ahead of us, and even when you couldn't see him, you could hear the people. You knew where he was. I just wanted to drink in the atmosphere. It made me cry. For so long, I'd held this hope in my heart. Many people over the years had come to me wanting to meet my son, the Messiah. But finally, there he was, out in the open, in the centre of our kingdom, of his kingdom. It was nothing like I thought. No pomp, no circumstance. He looked ordinary on the outside, but on the inside, he was nothing like an ordinary man. He was dressed like a normal man, and his his army, they just looked like you and me. They were nothing special, except everybody was included. Men, women, children, people that he'd healed, people that followed trying to get healing. They were there because they loved him. He was treated like a king. All my dreams had come true. But before I knew it, it turned into a nightmare.